Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about cranky fractions. Cranky fractions are fractions that do not have the same denominators. And they're fractions with different denominators, so our strategy is going to be to get them a common denominator. Find a common denominator. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's look at this first one in A. We're going to add and subtract fractions here. I've got 7/8 plus -2 over 5. Well, I've got 7/8 of something, and I want to add -2/5. I can't do that unless I've got a good basis for comparison. And so I'm going to try to find a common denominator. And I'm just going to take the two denominators, and I'm going to say, multiply them together. So 40 is going to be my common denominator. So what I want to add here is I want to add 40ths. And so I'm going to say 7/8. And I want it to equal something over 40. And I'm going to have this -2 over 5. And I want it to equal something over 40. So what do I have to multiply by? Well, if you look at how I found the common denominator, I just multiplied the two denominators together. So in order to find a common denominator, I multiply the two denominators together. So to convert them, I just need to multiply by the other denominator. And so I'm going to multiply by 5 on the bottom and also 5 on the top. So I end up with 35 over 40. My other one, I'm going to multiply by 8 on top and 8 on bottom, so I end up with -16. Now, when I put these two together, because remember I am adding them, I have 35 over 40 plus -16 over 40, and my answer is going to have 40ths on the bottom. How many 40ths? Well, 35 and -16, that's going to be, I'm going to subtract the easy way, get 19, and keep the sign of the larger absolute value, which is going to be positive. So I've got 19 over 40 as my answer. And I can't reduce that because 19 is a prime number. Let's look at another example. I've got 3/10 minus 5/6. I want to find a common denominator. Common denom. My common denominator is going to be something that both 6 and 10 go into. Well, if you're thinking about it, you know that they both go into 30, but we're going to use the multiplication problem of both of them. So it's going to be 60. So I'm going to list 3/10 equals how many 60ths? Well, I got to multiply that by 6 on top, 6 on bottom, so I've got 18. And my 5/6 is going to become something 60ths. Well, that's going to be times 10 over 10 because I have to multiply by the same thing on top and bottom. So it's 50 over 60. Now, I've got 3/10, which is 18 over 60, minus 50 over 60. We know that we're subtracting more than we have, so we're going to end up with a negative number. And we're going to have 60ths on the bottom. Well, in order to find our top number, we're going to subtract the easy way because really this is plus a -50 over 60. So I'm going to have 50 minus 18, which gives me 32. And I'm going to keep the sign of the larger absolute value. And when I compare them, I notice that that's negative, so I'm going to have -32 over 60. Any questions about that? Write them in the margin. This last one I want you to do on your own. Find your common denom. Write it here and find that common denominator. I've also given you 3 other ones to practice here. Alright, so see if you can practice those. I'm going to do this middle one. So if you want to try that middle one on your own, I would suggest you do that. But right now I'm going to do it. So if you want to practice it, pause the video, practice it, and I'm going to go through it. Let's find a common denom. for 12 and 9. This one's a little bit trickier because 12 and 9 you're thinking, okay, I don't know what goes into 12 and 9. Well, I can multiply them together, and so 5 twelfths, and I want to end up with what on the bottom? Well, my common denom is really going to be 12 times 9, which gives me 9 times 10 would be 90, plus 9 times 2, which is 18, is going to give me 108. So I'm going to end up with 108 on the bottom of both of these because I multiplied the two denominators together. And I knew I needed to multiply this by 9 over 9, so I've got 45 on top. Let's look at negative 7/9. I know I'm going to multiply by 12 over 12, and I'm going to end up with 108 on the bottom because that's my common denominator. 7 times 12 will be 7 times 10, which is 70. And then 7 times 2 is 14. So 70 plus 14 is going to give me 84. And I know that that's negative. Well, let's look. I have 45 over 108 minus 84 over 108. And I know that I am starting out with 45 of them, and I'm going to subtract 84. So I know that my answer is going to be negative. And I'm going to have 108 on the bottom. So I'll subtract the easy way. 9 gives me 39. So this is going to be negative 39 over 108. Ladies and gentlemen, as far as this is concerned, what we can do is we can try to multiply this out using prime factorization to reduce it. But your answer of negative 39 over 108 is going to give you a start. And then from there, it's just reducing fractions. So we know that negative 39 is going to be negative 3 times 13, which actually equals negative 1 times 3 times 13. And on the bottom, we know we're going to have 9 times 12. So that's going to be 3 times 3 times 12, right? Cross that out. So I'm going to be left with negative 13 over 36. Okay? That's all there is to it. Let's look at example 2. Example 2 has some x's and some y's in it, but I want to encourage you not to be scared because we are going to find a common denom. Watch how this works. I've got 2x over 5 and x over 6. So my common denom is going to be 30 because that's 6 times 5. And so 2x over 5 equals something over 30. Well, I'm going to multiply that by 6 over 6. 6 times 2x is going to be 12x. And then I've got my x over 6 is going to be something over 30. So I multiply top and bottom by 5. So I have 5x over 30. I'm going to combine these together. So I've got 12x over 30 plus 5x over 30. My denominator stays the same, and my top becomes 17x over 30. It's allowed. It's okay. I kind of ran over into my other space here, so let's just take this one down here. I've got 5 over y plus 7 over 8. Variable in the denominator. It's allowed, but that's going to make our common denom a little bit trickier. And so when I have a common denom for this one, it's going to be y times 8. It's going to be the product of the two denominators again. And so my common denom is going to be 8y. Well, look at how this plays out. 5 over y equals something over 8y. Well, what do I multiply by? Just like in every other example, I'm going to multiply by the other denominator. Y times 8 is 8y. Well, then 5 times 8 becomes 40. I'm going to convert 7/8 to something over 8y. Well, every other example, we multiplied by the other denominator. I'm going to do the same thing here. I've got 7y on top. How does this play out? Well, my problem then becomes 5 over y, which is now 40 over 8y, plus 7y over 8y. My denominator is 8y. Well, what's 40 plus 7y? Well, nothing. We don't know what it is. So we're just going to leave it as 40 plus 7y. Don't be afraid of the variables. The variables just represent a number, and so we can add those. We just leave them as 40 plus 7y, and then if they give us something to plug in for it, we'll make up for that later. That's all there is to it. We'll see you next time.